Okie dokie. Welcome back to our marriage live stream. Sorry we didn't get connected with you on Monday, but it was Memorial Day, and we were paying homage to all of our veterans and those service members, and thank you again for that. Had a great time. What'd you guys do for Memorial Day? Anything good? Nothing? Hang out in the house?
Invited myself and my sister-in-law for dinner.
Oh, nice.
Actually,
We grilled and hung out at the pool and stuff.
We had some
Yeah?
kids over.
Yeah.
Had some kids over? Oh, nice. We went over to a friend's house so our kids could pee in his pool.
Genius.
Right.
Very
Right. That was
Nice.
good.
I think we had one of your kids.
they did
at our house.
Oh, did you?
You
I think so.
definitely
Oh,
do.
well, he probably peed in your pool too.
Yeah, true story.
Multiple pools the
Multiple
DeLongs
pools.
were getting done. Okay,
Spreading the love.
let's get it on. I'm so glad you could join us. Today we have a very hot topic that I want to just dive right into. We're in chapter 6 if you're following along in your books in this series. No, that's not right. Sorry. Chapter 7, lied to you. Chapter 7, that's on page 29 in your book. And this is on God's design for sex and marriage. So we brought in the full panel for this one. Just 4 wasn't enough. Thought it'd be good to have everybody involved. And our main reading section for this, if you're not following along in the books, but you've been following along in the scripture as we've been working through it, is 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 1 through 11. And so we're going to talk about sex, but can we hit on your thing before we go into any of these questions? Like, you said that you thought, or Donna thought, that this was more of a girl topic.
Donna mentioned that it was more of a girl topic.
In what way is it more of a girl topic?
just wait.
Deflect.
Are you Googling the answer?
She's phoning a friend.
She's like, I need help with this one. This is more of a girl topic? Do you think that's? Do you think the girls talk about this more?
I think it's more complicated for girls than guys.
In what way? Look at you looking for help.
Because
Tag me in.
physiology, our bodies go through a lot more in life than
Okay.
a man's body does.
Okay, so would you say that the reason it's more of a girl topic is because over a long period of time, women's bodies are changing, and so it becomes in different seasons?
Definitely.
Okay, that's fair. You agree with that?
Somewhat.
Yeah.
Somewhat. I mean, you're definitely not what you were when you were 20, 40. You know what I'm saying? It's very different.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I started off with women, first of all, have their menstrual cycle,
Right.
which changes their body monthly. So they have
Right.
swelling on the brain, they have cravings, they have,
Crazy.
like, it literally...
Cravings.
I said it loud. Oh, she said cravings.
Inside
My bad. Sorry.
Not crazy.
Sorry, I didn't. I was trying to follow.
And like for that, some women can actually suffer like a few days out of the month. It's not like just keep on well, you have to keep on going, but it can be very, very severe.
Yeah, like PMDD. Severe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we give birth, we carry children, and then after birth, like our hormones are going crazy, and we're getting the touch and that physical connection with a child, and now like the husbands are kind of like almost like pushed to the side because we're just kind of, I should say me, but
Yeah.
this is like, I guess, a feeling that I got. Like,
Yeah.
I was so connected that it was kind of like that's where I was getting like like a nurturing
Yeah.
type thing, you
Yeah.
know. So and then your hormones are still kind of going crazy.
Yeah. And then menopause.
Yeah. Let's talk about
And then a whole nother season, right? Like
so
it's a
that's yes.
Yeah.
And for me, like I have 6 older female siblings. They never
got it.
told me anything about this. So
No
whoever
warning
wants to call me.
I'm ready to help.
I mean, my mother never spoke of it, like the severity of it or anything. 'Cause
Right.
It's mind, body, and soul. Like there's big differences.
Yeah.
Big changes, I should say.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not there. Don't look at me like.
I'm
Not there yet.
She's like, man, boss, tell me more about that.
I'm like, just give me a stare. I'm like, I know I'm aging, but give me a
I'm
minute.
not. I'm not insinuating you're at menopause yet.
Maybe that's
Close.
even off topic.
No, I don't think
Hold
so.
on.
I think what you're saying is, for a guy at, what would you say? For a guy at 20, for a guy at 30, for a guy at 40, not nearly the changes that a woman's gone through in the same 20 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
45 though. No, I'm just kidding.
We're just trying not to pee
That-
4 times a night.
exactly.
Right. I gotcha. But I mean, that's fair.
Very, very.
Yeah. So we get that. We're not beating you up for that. We get it. You guys are going through a whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bless
how about
you guys.
First, I know, but we're just kind of, we're just steady Eddie, right?
Yeah.
We just, okay. All right. So our first question was, what are the responsibilities and benefits of a sexual relationship for both husbands and wives? And I guess when I read the question, I was like, well, the benefits is kind of like a no-brainer. Right?
Exactly.
Like, duh. So what? So
Win-win.
so
From
what?
the guy's perspective.
From the guy's
perspective,
From
but
a guy's
now-
perspective, the benefits are kind of
Right.
like, okay. So I guess if you guys want to mention any other benefits that we don't know about,
Well, there's definitely intimacy.
okay.
It's a benefit.
I think that
You
I think
know?
guys think that too, though.
You know,
Absolutely.
We
Yeah,
want
I
to be
agree.
close.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely have a level of intimacy without being sexual, but yes, you can.
I'm just-
Yes, you can.
What? You
No,
can. You absolutely can.
Yes, you can. In a marriage, you can be really close to somebody without being intimate.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what
Okay.
I'm saying. But sex definitely increases that intimacy.
Yeah, the
So
close.
You know what I'm saying?
I think that
Please tell us what you think.
so I think that sex is what makes the difference. Because you could have strong bonds with somebody of the opposite sex, and you know sometimes what brings that over to the relationship being intimate and that closeness is the sex.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I think that there is a benefit to that. There's definitely intimacy that grows from that. We tend to get grumpy after a certain time.
He means men.
Men tend to get grumpy if
We've never had that problem.
if you don't get really okay. I stand corrected. It's
What's your time frame?
Time out.
depends.
Can we get a hard number on what? what's
I don't get grumpy, but I definitely.
Then that invites responsibilities. When the grumpiness comes, I'm like, check my responsibilities.
Oh my goodness.
The time frame. I don't know that I have like a time frame because I tend to be good at like okay we have a lot going on and like
You tend to be pretty gracious.
not gracious but like understanding. I would say
Understanding.
like okay.
What's his time frame?
I don't know. Honestly, we're having an open conversation, right?
Right.
No judgment here.
Yeah, no judgment.
There are times that things happen often. There are times that things I'm like, it's been a while.
Right.
We better check
Yeah.
that into the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
gotcha.
it's never like a exact time. But I know that if it's been more than a week, responsibilities have to come into
That's
play.
all. Have prayer.
Yeah.
Does this how long you guys been married?
It'll be 18 years, right?
18
No,
years.
it'll be 19.
That's
I don't know.
19 years.
2002.
And I was there for this thing.
2000. What year are
I was there for this.
No,
I was there for this.
21.
Okay.
She's like, he's like, I don't know.
still can get
19
It's great
19
that you
years.
can
So
remember.
does that
That's
change
19
over time? Does that do you notice a big shift? Is it different now than it was when you got married? Well, I'm saying for a lot of
Yeah.
like you said, I got sisters that never told me anything. I think a lot of couples are going, we don't really know what to expect with us. Like what?
My dad had a kid at 70 something. So
Well, if you're married at 24 years old
Okay.
and you start your relationship and you're having relationships, or your relationship,
Yeah.
and your intimate moments,
yeah.
when you're 24 years old versus when you're 35 years old or 40 years old or 45, 50, as you get older,
Yeah.
that's all going to change. And I think it's, what Donna was saying as far as the physical changes that happen in a woman's body, men's bodies as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But do you think every couple should just expect like, so if there's a couple that's in their 20s and they're listening to this and they're just not getting married, and there's a couple couples that I know that are listening to this just got married, so they're saying, hey, when we get to 55, 60 years old, we just expect like birthdays and anniversaries and that's it, and everybody will just, it's pretty much like.
It's not so. It's
No,
more of a
it's not
difference
quite
between,
like that.
Well, I'm just asking. I'm
Yeah,
not.
no, but there is, I mean, if you expect it to be that, if that's what your relationship is made of,
Yeah.
Expectations.
that-
It shouldn't be an expectation.
you know, okay, I
Okay.
can't wait to get
You know?
home and take my wife to bed at 24 or whatever it is.
Right.
If you're expecting that and that's what your expectations are as you get older, that's not a realistic expectation. It's
It
not a
shouldn't be an
relationship built out
expectation.
of it.
Right.
You know, it shouldn't be an
So-
expectation. I think that if you're in your 20s and you just got married, you know, naturally when you have a good relationship, when things are going, you know, when everything is running smoothly,
Right.
that should just be a part of it. But it shouldn't be
Okay.
an expectation.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't be like, oh, when I'm in my 50s or 60s, things are going downhill. You know, like you shouldn't base. I guess what I'm saying is, it shouldn't be like, I'm gonna get this as much when I'm that old. You know,
Yeah.
like it shouldn't even be a thought. Like to me, it wouldn't even be a thought.
Well, but think about it. Okay.
Stop it with your
Because I'm kind of thinking the same thing. Okay, so I think everybody assumes, right? I think there's a general assumption that hey, of course you're not going to be having the same amount of sex when the year
Yeah.
one of your marriage that you have year 20 and year 40 and year whatever your marriage.
Correct.
Of course, like I think everybody gets that, right?
Okay, so that's.
But
the
with
same.
that aside, I'm not sure I agree. Like, don't have an assumption because I think this whole passage that we're reading is built off the idea that there definitely is an assumption. Like the idea of like, hey, like think about these words, right? But since sexual immorality is occurring, each man should have his own sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband. And in the same way, the husband does not have authority over his body, but yields it to his wife. Like it appears like Paul is saying, like, hey, the assumption is that whether or not there's an ebb and flow to this from your 20s to your 60s, right, or to whatever, into life, yes, that's going to change, but everybody's still going to have a drive. And everybody's still going to have the need to connect and the need for intimacy and the need for closeness,
Yeah.
and, you know, and the need for a sex life within a marriage.
Absolutely.
So,
I'm not taking that away.
Okay.
But I guess what I'm saying is, if you're in your 20s and just married,
right.
you don't know what's going to happen when you're 60.
But that's what I'm at. I think that's why we have the great panel. We have people of different,
Like, you don't know what's going to happen when you're 60. What
Right.
if you have impotence when you're 60?
Yeah, okay, fair.
You know?
Fair.
The desire might
Health-
be there, but,
yeah.
you know, what if you have health issues or you have other problems?
Yes.
Like, you don't know. So
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. Like, because that was your statement was, if you have a young couple, should they feel like 50s and 60s is gonna, you know, like
Yeah.
the expectation should be lower. What I'm trying to say is like, you don't know what's gonna happen when
Maybe
you're that
okay.
age.
So let me reword it, and you tell me if you agree. So you're basically saying your expectations should not be built off your first year. Like those should not be the
Correct.
standard of your
No,
expectation.
it should-
Like
that's what
you
I'm
should
trying
go
to say.
into it with like, of course, there's going to be stuff going on here that you got to deal with, and everybody's got their own cards that get dealt to them.
Correct.
But-
It's like, it's hard to tell what's gonna happen when your marriage is mature
Right.
over the years.
Or when your life matures, just your.
Correct.
Yeah,
you
I was
know?
talking to somebody recently, and the wife had gone through a bout with cancer, and it took
Yeah,
about
yeah,
18
yeah.
months
You know,
of like treatment and stuff, and he was just like, "Look, it was a tough road."
Like,
But
what do you do with
what was I
something
supposed
like
to do?
that?
Be like, "Hey, get in here, let's go."
I mean,
I know
for
you're
something
miserable.
like
We got to
that
get
is-
down to business, right?
For something like
Yeah.
that,
He
it's
had to just
almost
suck it up.
understandable.
Huh?
Like if it's a sickness or something like that, something understandable. But like in a healthy couple that does day-to-day life, you should have that desire for each other, and there should be intimacy. Like
Yeah.
it should come natural for
Exactly.
you guys to want to do that. I mean, granted, it's not gonna be like back in the car. It's more like you still have your socks on, kind of thing.
What?
What happened to the
I'm all
socks?
confused.
What was the socks?
Like it,
What is-
you know.
What do you say
I mean,
about socks?
But that desire should still be
You got a
there.
foot. You got a foot fetish or something?
Going back to his 20s or something.
You know.
Not what he was doing. Back in the day.
Okay. Well, let's take out. So let's pretend for a moment that no matter the season of marriage, that there is physical health on both parts.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Let's just say that for the moment, and recognizing that if there wasn't, yes, there would have to be allowances and like considerations and grace and a bunch of other things.
Absolutely.
But assuming that everybody's in good health and they're married and they're, you know, why do you think he says it this way? I mean, it is pretty interesting. Like, husbands should fulfill their marital duty to their wife, wives to their husbands. Your body's not your own. His body's not his own. I mean, these are pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Like, this is a pretty. I mean, Paul's like holds no punches. He's kind of like black and white. He's kind of like, there's a job to be done. You will get to it.
I think he's saying that we're equal.
Right.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
And then I think I'm gonna flip to the other question about, like, if you're like withholding sex because of, you know, like, then that's like, that's not God. That's not what God wants. That's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
what. Or if you have sex to get something.
Yeah, you're using it as a tool. It
Correct.
becomes a tool
Correct.
and not an expression of
Correct.
love,
Of love.
and intimacy and affection and any of these things. It just becomes like
Exactly.
a manipulation tool of some sort.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, like, if you talk to a lot of couples that have issues, right? Either the man or the woman is lacking something in their mind, because we come from, you know, we're broken and we're always selfish and thinking about ourselves. But the truth is that, like, if I talk to young guys sometimes, and they're like, I'm like, what is the issue? Well, you know, my wife at first, she was all into this, and now, you know, we barely talk to each other. So you could see that this young man is, you know, swaying because he's not getting that at home. So now he's getting that attention from somebody else.
Right.
And I think that's why it says, like,
Right.
you know, with your own wife or with your own husband. Same thing with women. For women, it's a little bit different because it's more of an emotional thing. So if the husband is not there and doesn't, you know, pay them attention,
It
or
also says fulfill your duties. That doesn't necessarily mean physical.
Wait, what do you mean?
You know what I'm
please,
saying?
Please help me understand.
Like when I read that passage,
Okay.
because I feel like we females tend to be a little bit more emotional.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I feel like it's almost like a good way to like say, you know how we've been through chapters,
Yeah.
like the health of the marriage and the children and whatever. Like it takes a whole lot of steps
Yeah.
for a female to be like, okay, I'm feeling generous today. Let's fulfill our duties. But if you're pissing me off,
Okay.
I'm withholding.
Okay.
Which I shouldn't do. I know. Sorry, Jesus. but you know,
Yeah, but that's the whole point, right?
I know. That's why I come to church. I need grace.
Right,
I'm
right.
not perfect.
Okay,
You know?
okay.
so my duty becomes not upsetting her.
My duty,
Exactly.
No withholding.
is not
We all
upsetting.
fulfilling our duty. No, but
Just not upset this woman.
yeah, look, we do live in a super broken, crazy world, and if you in your marriage neglect the fact that if you don't give your spouse the attention or needs, and it doesn't mean like just have sex all the time, but like be all into each other, somebody will sneak into that. It shouldn't be, but that's not really what happens in the real world. The real world is if you're not purposeful about being all in into your spouse, somebody else will be, and they don't care that that person is married or anything, and it happens all the time.
I had this conversation a lot. This may be too much. We're gonna go right up to the edge as much as we can do. But I have, believe it or not, I have this conversation quite a bit in like a pastoral counseling situation, usually with a
Shocking.
couple, right? And let me just say up front, just for everybody listening and for you guys, that usually most sex therapists, whether they be Christian or not, will tell you it's about 80-20, meaning that usually it's, if you're coming into a counseling setting and you've got problems in the area of your sexual intimacy, usually it's 80% that's the guys are complaining, right?
Absolutely.
But there's usually but the opposite side is there's about a 20% that it's women complaining. The funny thing is about counseling is, surprisingly enough, a lot of the counseling centers around women complaining because guys just assume that's their complaint. It's like normal. It's like, I don't need to go to counselor for this. This is just happening to all of us. We're all complaining about this. This
Yeah.
is just what's going on, right? But when it's a woman who's like, hey, there's a problem here. I want it. He doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Then it's like, we're going to counseling. You know what I mean? So I end up having this conversation a lot. But putting that on the bookshelf, one of the things that I'm always saying I'm saying, hey, it's funny, when you start out in a relationship, of course, the frequency of sex is going to be much higher when you
Yeah.
get started, right? But when you start out, there is this sense of like, kind of like passion, right? There's this
Yeah.
sense of like, kind of, I don't know, like excitement, a spark, a passion, right? And then we do kind of get into this routine
Yeah.
of like what we do. And then like, it's just kind of like, okay, yeah, you know what I mean? And so I'm usually saying a lot to couples in those situations. Can you get back to your roots? Yes, you're not going to do it, you know, with
the
the same frequency, but can you shake it up a little bit here a little? You know what I'm saying? Like you used to,
Yeah.
it used to not always be between the same 2 hours in the same location on the same day of the week. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like, could we get a little variety up in here,
Yeah.
please? Thank you very much. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Does that make
absolutely.
sense?
The socks.
Yes. Get your socks
Socks on.
on. Turn the
Yeah.
lights down this level. TV up at this level. Like it's like, oh my gosh. Like it's like we have a routine, and you don't even know you're in the routine till you're in it. And then you're like, we're doing the same thing every time.
Wait a
Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying you got to break out a set of Karma Sutra cards, but like, could you try something?
At our age, you can't do that. It's seasonable, those
Not
things.
limber
I
enough.
like, on my hip, just warming up for it. Just like, okay, this is not happening today.
I got one of those roller ball
That's
things.
right,
Have you
I
seen those? The roller wheels? I have to do that thing every day now.
No.
I got that for my birthday.
Because of the
No,
His
not the
back
sex.
hurts.
That's
Ay, Dios.
separate from the sex.
separate.
My husband.
Like, grill yourself.
Said
Hey.
reel yourself back in.
Shut it down.
Shut it down.
Shut down.
Oh, so good. Okay, but does that make sense though? Like it is kind of. I mean, I say it comically, but you wouldn't believe how much I'm having that conversation where I'm like, hey, have you thought about like routine? Have you thought about like changing this up
Yes.
a little bit? You know.
Yeah, and so I was. One of the guys from work was like, oh, I don't know, like not feeling connected to his wife and stuff. And then I asked him, I was like, so what do you do? He's like, well, I watch porn. I was like, that's your problem right there. So you're watching this thing that is not realistic at all.
Completely
And
unattainable.
then you're like coming home to your wife, and they've been together like 15 years. I was like, of course you're gonna have problems in that area at home. I was like, and I could almost guarantee you that your wife is not feeling attractive because you're not giving her that attention because you're looking for that somewhere else.
Right.
You're trying to fulfill that somewhere else, and at the same time, you're leaving her, lacking that attention from you.
I just think that it's easy to look at a passage like that and feel like, like, oh, this is what you have to do. Clearly that's what it
Okay.
says. But there's there's steps. Not necessarily steps, but it takes a whole bunch of things
Yeah.
to get to a place in a marriage where you want to be intimate all the time. Although it's your responsibility because the Bible says it. You could be you can lay in a bed and have your husband, okay, do your thing.
No.
It's my responsibility. But that's boring.
That's
Yeah.
You're
reading a
if
newspaper? No.
If you want an
Read the newspaper.
yeah, it's like
What?
bring a comic book in the middle of it.
if you want an intimate moment
Yes.
with, your husband or wife,
Right.
there's more to it than just fulfill a responsibility.
I would agree with that. I mean, do you agree with that?
Yeah. I agree with that.
I mean, you can literally say to yourself as a woman, okay, I'm gonna have sex with my husband every night. Okay, I'm here. It's my responsibility from 8 to 8:30. Go ahead.
Can you fake it a little bit though? Like, doesn't have to be with that face. You can
know what
lie
I'm
at
saying?
least. Be like,
I'm like,
I'm here.
I'm
At
like,
least
do your
I don't think a lot of guys will mind. They'll be like, okay, I'll take
The
it.
funny
do
thing,
you
that's kind of what I'm
I
thinking.
do. I do.
He does.
He does. He does.
I've told her, I was
doesn't.
like,
He doesn't want that.
yeah, I was like, if you're just
he he
Like,
doesn't.
no.
He can tell the difference if I'm into it or if I'm like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. But
You
to your
know?
point, I mean, I think I'm understanding what you're saying is that
I mean,
we do.
I mean,
Finish your thought.
Well, it kind of, I think she's responding to what you're saying is about the routine, you know, like if you're working 7:30 to, 6 at night every day, and then you come home and you have to cook dinner, you have to do homework, you have to do this, do that.
Yeah.
Of course it's going to be routine if that's what season of life you're in. You know, if
I don't accept that. I don't. No, I don't.
Okay.
but then both
I mean, pretty
parties.
much every sex therapist on the planet won't accept it
But
either.
then both parties have to.
then something has
Put
to
in the
change.
work.
You have, what do you
No,
do,
what I'm-
like
what I'm
come
saying
home
is
at
that-
lunch. That's not attainable for some people.
No,
Trying
it's
to find
but that's
different time.
that's actually the point. Like I guarantee you, if you're in your first year of dating or first year of marriage, you
make
make
the
a
time.
lunch date attainable. That's the point. Is that sometimes you have to do things that are about, hey, I'm putting my spouse at a place of honor and first, and sometimes it's going to cost me something. It's going to cost me either
Yeah.
time or effort or energy or finances or whatever it's going to cost me.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put forth, the effort to to say, hey, you're special to me. You're special to me, right? And I think that's okay. And I think that, of course, it can't happen every day. I get that. But I think at some level. Would you like to respond to that?
I please the fifth.
What
The
I'm
fifth.
gonna say is not nice.
Really? Really?
No, I think in the beginning of our marriage,
Okay.
yes, you did make more time. You
No,
were
I'm saying
scheduled
both of us. I'm not just
available.
saying you.
Well,
Yeah.
She's
it's
saying
in-
mostly you.
Yeah, mostly me. Yeah, mostly me.
It takes a lot of work to do what you're saying. And so I
Absolutely.
think when you get older, when you have more kids,
It gets harder.
the effort is more exhausting.
Absolutely.
And so you can say all that about routine, but you also have to look at the whole picture.
I'm not
about how
saying
life
I'm not
changes
saying there isn't
over
more
time.
challenges, and I'm not saying frequency's not going to go down. I'm just saying
That it still should happen.
that should help.
No,
should
I
happen.
totally agree
Yeah.
with that. I'm
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
saying one of the comments said there's so many factors involved in every stage of life. And so I think going back to what we were saying is
Yeah.
you can't compare your 20s to your 30s to your 40s to your 50s for a number of different
Well,
reasons.
think about it, and maybe it's just the counselor in me. It's like the pastoral counselor in me speaking. But think about it. If I got couples coming in all the time, and you got two people sitting at the couch, and this is normally what happens. Okay, I'm just fast forwarding it for you. 90% of the time. Okay, couple sits down. What's the problem, guys? You start. Girl goes, well, it's like he's not present, or I just don't feel like, I feel like he's checked out, or he's on the game, or he's in his hobby, or blah, 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 blah. And what's your problem? And sir, from your perspective, what's your problem?
He said that.
Not enough
Talk
sex.
to him.
Like literally every time.
Yeah.
It's like not enough sex, all these things. And I'm like, hey, okay. So, and then when we get to this problem, not enough sex, it's like, well, the list, right? We're working, we got lots of kids, we got lots of things, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but these two things have an answer, right? Like they go together. These two
Intertwined.
things have to happen together to have that mend and that fix, right? And so,
I think that brings us back to a couple of weeks ago.
right,
When I said we purposely plan weekend getaways.
Right.
Or if the kids are at school and I can take a day off and he can take a day off, we do that.
Right.
Or even if it's a couple hours, he stays an hour later in the morning. You know, we purposely do those things. So
Yeah.
it takes a lot of acknowledgement and working together to
Right.
get to a point where you can fulfill all these things.
And she
Right.
tells me, we're not vibing. We gotta do something.
I
I'm
say
like,
that.
okay.
I'm like,
Right.
something's happening here, not
Right.
vibing,
Yeah.
and I'm not doing this over. So let's figure it out.
yeah.
But I think that's what the verse is saying. It says, you know, the wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband, and in the same way the husband does not have authority over his own body. Exactly what you're saying is, it has to be both people
Absolutely.
making an effort. And so if the,
But I think what's hidden in that passage for me is that, like, when you sit down, you have a couple sits down before you in a counseling situation. Think about what's happening, right? When it comes to the sex discussion, it's usually I'm not having enough sex, and the wife's like, I'm not feeling it.
Correct.
Well, and you're not going to like my answer. I tell them every time, you're not going to like my answer. Doesn't matter how you feel. That's what this is saying. This is not about how you feel, right? That we have responsibilities to the other. It's not like I'm married to you when I feel like being married to you. It's not like I'll care for you when I feel like you're worthy to be cared of. I'll honor you when you're
Okay,
honorable.
but what I'm saying,
yeah.
what I'm saying, men, listen up. What I'm saying is, you can fulfill your responsibility, but it's not gonna be fun for you if you don't get in the field. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, but and also,
saying.
I do believe that if the man does their part,
Yeah.
they're gonna want to.
Absolutely.
I
I
think-
think
Like naturally,
yielding-
they're gonna want. to.
Sure, we can have. You can do your thing. I'll do my part. I'll be responsible. I'll lay there like a log. You're gonna be poor. That's it.
I'll lay there
Can't
like-
confirm or deny that the words corpse have been like. Go ahead, just do it. I'm like, okay, I don't want. I'm gonna lay
Do
there.
your part. Do your part to take care of the heart
Okay.
and the
Yeah.
emotions and the feels. So I want to give you my body.
body.
Otherwise, my body's still mine. And I'll pray
Isn't
to
that
Jesus.
conditional love though?
It's not.
I think it. Don't you think that's such a like? It's so difficult because guys, men and women are so different, right? This is so difficult because men and women. Because everything you just said, I don't disagree with. Every woman on the planet would agree with, and I don't disagree with. There's a valid point here. I'm not saying there's not. It's just from a male perspective, we're like, what? Like, like we've never had to be prompted
Yeah.
Absolutely.
to
God
want to
made
be
you that way.
intimate.
God
right?
made
So we're
you
like,
this way.
we're like, what?
No, we're like.
We gotta do
Has a
what?
pulse today. That's not a requirement sometimes. If she woke up, told you could be
But
sleeping.
then,
So you need to review.
exactly. But then you can demand not a routine situation. If you want us to just fulfill a responsibility, then you get routine.
I'm not saying.
I'm defending
I
the
think-
women here.
I-
We need a little bit more.
Listen,
Okay?
listen. I'm not saying that the routine comments earlier should be the norm. Obviously, in a marriage, there's going to be a level of routine. I'm not saying there's not. I'm saying
Absolutely.
we should have some routine breakers every now and then. But like, obviously, the norm is not going to be the breaking of the routine.
Right.
There's going to be a little bit of a routine. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying. But in the routine, you got 80%, right? 80% of basic couples where the guy's going, this isn't happening enough.
I
Right?
get it. And I get it. What I'm saying is, we do, as women, have a responsibility to our husbands.
Right.
I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying is, if you want it to be intimate, fun, interesting, different, men have to do a little bit too. We can't just fulfill our responsibilities without emotion
In connection.
and
We're- yeah,
connection.
we
just-
I mean,
Right.
you can, anybody.
Right.
But if you want to have
Yeah, yeah.
intimacy,
Yeah. Fair enough.
that's different.
Fair enough. I agree.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
agree.
Like-
you agree with that? Yeah, you're on board with that. You're on board.
Sorry,
said it well.
I feel like I've taken all the words.
She's on.
You're my friend.
Yeah. You agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, for the people listening, not for these guys, we've got it. Okay? For the people listening, what would be some examples of things that the guy could do that would be,
Stop.
that would prime the pump?
You don't gotta take notes.
That would prime
you
the
don't have
pump.
to
The
take
dishes.
notes. You
The
do-
dishes.
You do it
The
all.
dishes.
Thank you.
So,
Not necessarily doing things.
okay,
You
okay.
don't necessarily have to do something.
Okay,
But,
speaking of
you know,
your
like,
perspective. Your perspective.
I'll give you examples from my husband. 'cause
Okay.
he's the best.
Okay.
That's the example I
Yes.
can give. Okay?
fantastic.
So he'll text me randomly. I hope you're having a beautiful day.
Fair enough.
You know? Like I get home sometimes like, I fed the kids. I'm like, oh, thank you. You know? It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Right.
Literally be like, how was your day? Just care, a little care,
A little
a little
care.
attention.
Right.
You know, randomly I'll show up and he'll have flowers. Sometimes, like
Yeah.
unexpected
Stuff.
love. And
Yeah.
yes. it
Drops you
doesn't-
off your
It
know,
doesn't
lunch
even-
or your coffee or
It
flowers
doesn't even
or
have
whatever
to
it's
be
going to be.
anything big. Literally, hey, do you need me to do anything for you today?
Yeah, what do you need
I'll be
today?
like, I'm fulfilling my responsibility tonight, baby.
Hashtag
You know
truth.
what I'm saying?
It happened. So it prompts me to be like, what do you need?
Yeah.
What can I do for you today, my love?
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Yeah.
You don't gotta take me to a fancy dinner. None of that. You know. The other day, he used my car, and I got in the car like 2 days after, and my tank was full.
Yeah.
I was like, you filled up my tank. Okay. Got you. Check.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it doesn't take much.
Right. Okay.
You know.
So thoughtfulness,
Thoughtfulness,
proactive,
a little care,
service,
you know,
little something.
He tells me, oh, you look so beautiful today. Women like to feel beautiful and appreciated.
Guys, I hope you're taking notes. Okay.
That's it. Not much.
Yeah. Are you agree with that? You get any of that stuff?
To me,
Yeah,
anyway,
I bring her flowers all the time.
I'm not
last
speaking
thing.
for every other woman. You know,
It's a
everybody
little
needs
different for everybody, sure.
Yes,
A little different
yes.
for everybody, but you can relate to the
Oh,
mentality.
yeah.
And he's thoughtful like that.
Oh, I think he's very thoughtful.
Yeah.
Also, there are times that I tell him, I'm like, I love you, babe. I'm not feeling my best. And when he says to me, honey, it's okay. You know, no worries. Like, it's almost like he's telling me, you're not obligated. I don't love you because you fulfill your responsibilities. I love you in spite.
Fair enough.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? So there's a sense of security and a desire for me to make sure that he is fulfilled in every way,
Right.
because he cares enough that if one day I'm like, I'm just not, and I don't tell him I have a headache. I straight up sometimes I'm like, in the mood today. And he'll be like, it's okay, baby. We'll just watch a movie and cuddle. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
take that, because sometimes you just want to be held.
She doesn't come. She lied.
I don't cuddle. I'm menopause
Hashtag
part
truth.
1.
Like,
I can do the cuddle. No, I can't. I'm hot. Please. No.
Hashtag true.
But I'm saying, sometimes I cuddle.
She does.
Very little, but I do. You know what
You
I'm
guys
saying?
cuddlers?
No.
Us neither. We're not really, no.
no.
I can do it a little bit,
Yeah.
but I get too hot.
Yeah.
It's 40,
falls
40.
asleep.
No.
Actually, she just falls asleep.
All joking aside,
Yeah.
we do have a responsibility as wives, but the husband also has a responsibility.
Right.
It shouldn't be just our job, you know?
Fair enough. I think we agree with that. I don't know too many husbands don't agree with that.
But I think that when I was saying it's more of a woman thing, I think that guys, I think it's more important for guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
It's not as
definitely.
much for you ladies. You're not thinking about
It's not our
women
first
don't think
thought.
about it
It is not our first
as often
thought.
as we do.
Yeah.
You know, it's
No,
really
I-
not.
yeah.
And, for some women, maybe, but honestly, it's not our first thought.
I
I
think
think
that's
fine.
my toughest, like, corner to turn a lot of times in counseling situations is that I'm like, what you said is just true. 100% believe that. Like, that's a great way of putting it. It's not our first thought,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I'm like, the same way your husband was thinking about it when you met him at 24, right? He's still thinking
now.
about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the great part is he's still thinking about it with you, right? He wants, you know what I'm saying? He wants, and like, just because you stopped thinking about it doesn't mean he stopped, right? And so
Yeah.
that's part of the
No, I get
discussion we
it.
have, yeah.
I
That-
get it,
that's
but,
important.
but there's, communication is very important.
Yeah.
It's in order for,
Have you guys ever had like I'm just asking, you don't have to
Yeah.
go through the details of
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
like maybe a little too much for us here. But have you ever had like a pretty raw, like, hey, this is exactly what I need to function kind of conversation about your sex life to each other? Have you had like a, hey, like when I say, let me back it up. Let me back it up and give you an example. Like I have a couple that I like, friend of mine, and he was like, Mike, I solved this problem about 4 weeks into our marriage. I just sat her down and said, this is exactly what needs to happen every week. Bam, 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 and
Yeah.
I'm going to be a very happy man.
Absolutely not. I mean, she knows.
I know the things that he needs.
Name them.
Well, she just
For-
knows.
Hey, watch. Get her, baby.
Food, Wi-Fi, sex, and for me to be nice to the kids.
That's
Done.
it.
That's
That's
it.
it.
It's a wrap.
That's it.
No conversation needed. That's
No
it.
conversation.
No conversation
Yeah,
needed.
but I'm saying specifically about sex. Like, I think a lot of couples never talk about it. I think there's frustration brewing, but there's never a discussion.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that there is.
What? How about for you guys?
I forget.
I think
You forget. You forget you had the discussion. You forget the question.
No, I think that that's crazy if you don't talk about it. What
Okay.
are you talking about?
Yeah. We need to talk about it.
No, we talk about it.
But no, you would be surprised how many couples have never talked about it. Like they come to counseling to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? Like they're mad and the other person doesn't even really know. They just know, they know generally like, hey, he wants more than I'm giving him or she wants more than I'm giving her.
Yeah.
But they've never actually talked specifically about it. Like, hey, this needs to happen. This is my healthy level of frequency. Like and that's changing different seasons.
I
But
have-
hey, we need to like have,
like I said, I mean, we obviously haven't been married that long.
right.
But I am very aware of when it's been too long.
Right.
You know, like and not because he's, you know, rude or anything about it, but I can't. It's like I know what he needs.
Yeah.
My mood changes. It does. I'm not like mean or yell, but like my hands are shorter. And
Yeah, he's
it's
a
just
little like,
different.
and I'm like, he needs to.
You ever notice that? Yeah?
Yeah, I think a lot of guys are like. We probably won't say it out loud or voice it, but but one of the things for me,
Why won't we voice it?
I don't know. I think I'll tell you why I don't.
Okay.
Because I don't want her to want me just because I mentioned it.
I know that's
all the time.
huh?
You literally mention it all.
I know, but that's the whole point. We don't. But we're not happy about it. We're not happy that we mentioned it for that very
Yeah,
reason.
for
Because
that
it's like
very
now I don't want it to be a thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it becomes a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing if you say it.
Yeah, it's
That's
a
what
thing.
is.
If
So
you say it
I
now,
wouldn't-
it's
I
like, what?
wouldn't
You got a
mention it.
calendar out? You're planning these days out? I don't want that.
But that's what I'm saying.
That's a problem.
Take your
Guys
steps.
want you to want it as much as we want. it.
Yes.
Never gonna happen.
I know, but it's very frustrating.
Well, you'll get older.
Yeah, but you know what
You'll get older.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yes.
hey, we knew need to talk about it. We got to get over that point. It's kind of
Yeah.
like, it's kind of like gift buying, right? Like, I don't want to have to tell you what I want as a gift, but
Right.
sometimes you do. You just
Yeah.
got to tell them what you want. You know what I'm saying? Right? Is that fair? Is that a good illustration?
You start dropping hints and put a bunch of stuff on the Amazon cart. Is that what you?
Exactly. The Amazon.
I don't do that.
No,
Have
I
you
didn't
had
say-
multiple conversations about this or one? Yes. Okay. Okay. So it's
And I think I'm the one that initiated most of them
Probably.
because,
Probably.
and I would probably start it off with like, I don't really want to have to talk about this.
I'd rather not.
However,
Yeah,
But yeah, it's-
seriously, and I think the older you get, unless you want your sex life to go away, you're gonna have to talk more.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
I mean,
Remem-
you do have to talk more.
Remember when we were at that
Remember
party?
what?
Remember we were at a party. Donna and I were at a party together at one point, and this happens to me a lot as a pastor. I'm like eating like a cheese plate or something. You know what I'm saying? We're at like a party, and this lady sits down next to me and goes, "Hey,
Oh, I
I'd
heard-
like to come in for counseling. I hadn't had sex with my husband in 7 years."
Oh yeah.
In front of everybody.
In front of
No
everybody.
way.
And I was like,
This is good cheese.
not sure how to answer that one right now.
Write down the time.
Yeah, let me give you time. But you're right. Like that's a perfect example, a hyper example of how bad it can get if there's not maintenance and communication and talking and working through it and all that kind of stuff.
And that couple's no longer together either.
Well, and did you expect something
Well,
different?
No, not really.
No, exactly.
yeah, it does happen. Life has a way of just happening where you're just, you're just busy.
Yeah.
And if you don't take those time outs to make each other priority, sometimes by the time that you realize it, it's
Too
hard.
late.
It's too late.
It's hard
yeah.
to come back from that curve, and you don't realize that there could be no malice behind it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be that your wife doesn't want you. It's just she's thinking about all these things like the kids and like work and the homework and all this, like
Yeah.
Kat mentioned. We went to this marriage thing with
Yeah,
the
the
church, And that's one of the things that the lady was mentioning. Is like he's looking at her and he's like, "We're gonna go to this hotel and it's gonna be great." And he's like, and she's like, "Did I pack everything?" Like her mind is just going about all the stuff that she has to do, you know. And I was like, until that moment, I really never realized how different our minds were on that level. That there has to be no it doesn't have to be like malice or like, not that she's not attracted to me. It's just her mind is on another different level,
Right.
you know. So that's why I think it's important to make time.
Yeah.
Yes.
for that.
That is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, last question. How does this passage speak against using sex as a reward or withholding sex as a punishment to one's spouse? Now, so it basically gives the positive and the negative, right?
Yeah.
Because people do that. You basically make a lot of couples make the same mistake in two different directions, either positive or negative. Either you're withholding sex as a punishment, or you're using sex as a
Scooby
as a
snack.
carrot, as a reward. Yeah, Scooby snack. A
Yeah,
Scooby snack.
Yeah.
Well done, sir. Yeah.
you, man. That was good.
Yeah, I mean, and so let's start out with why that's bad, and then move to why he connects it in this passage and makes it part of the responsibility of marriage not to do this. You know, because I got a lot of couples who would ask, well, we use it almost as a reward system. Why is that bad?
Yeah, no. So like, that can.
Because that's part of your covenant in the marriage.
Right.
It's not a reward.
Yeah.
It's part of your
Your
marriage.
It's a
Yeah.
reward, right?
It's
But I think your answer is 100% right.
Yeah.
It can't be a reward when it is part of your responsibility and part of the
it's
covenant,
part of
covenant
your
of the marriage.
covenant as the marriage.
Yeah.
It's not a reward.
When you turn it into a reward, then you're basically, you're, what are you doing to it? You're taking what should be this covenant, which should be your responsibility, no matter what the other person does or doesn't do, not based upon their. Think about it from a Christian perspective, right? Now it's, hey, I give you myself based upon what you do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not what marriage is. Marriage reflects God, so it reflects His grace. I give myself to you, even when you don't always live up, right?
Correct.
Like
Correct.
I'm offering you grace in the midst of your brokenness, right? I'm with you in spite of your failings or the things that don't line up, right? And so it doesn't reflect His nature. It doesn't reflect the grace of God. It doesn't reflect any of those things. When you turn it into this works-based tool, like, gotta get out there and work my way into the bed tonight. Right.
We do that as a society, though, with almost everything and everybody. Like our kids, it's almost like, I love you, you're great, whatever, but you have to do X, Y, and Z. Or like, then you move on to your friends. I love you, whatever, but then you like, there's always an expectation with that love that that people give, you know, and it's so toxic to do that, you know, because people fail. And it's like, can you imagine like your kids, like, I love you, but like, you better have good grades, otherwise, you know.
Yeah.
You start treating them different just because they had a bad grade,
Right.
or because they did something that kids do. Now you're gonna treat them different, and it's weird,
Yeah.
you know. So from a very young age, you're almost exposed and programmed to like, okay, if I do good, then this person's gonna love me, and they're not gonna go away.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. No, it's a good point. I mean, I was with a group of guys one time, and the guy had been belly aching the whole 18 holes of golf about his relationship with his spouse. And one of the other guys, who tends to be really direct, just said, doesn't sound like you're getting any. And he was like, that hadn't happened in X, Y, and Z. And it was just like, all of us were just like so sad for him.
So true.
You know what I'm saying? We were just
Yeah.
like in mourning for him. We're just like, oh,
I hear you, man.
this is not going to work. No, not for us.
For
For
him.
him. Yeah, it was just like, oh, this is bad. This is on its way out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was kind of just a sad moment. Yeah, and then he saw it in our eyes, and then he was sad. It was just like, just a moment. You know what I'm saying?
You don't know. It's bad for us. We get together at Bed Bath and Beyond and talk about this.
What about using it as a punishment though too, like the really negative things? Have you seen it been used as a punishment?
I don't think it's that. I think like she said earlier, like you can't be a jerk to your wife and then expect for her to want to be close to you.
Yeah, that's
You know what I mean? And then we flip it around and be like, can you believe this?
She's withholding.
She's withholding.
Yeah, no,
But you're
absolutely.
being a doggy.
There's a level of
Yeah, no, but that happens a lot. Like we're very unaware of
Yeah.
of the way that we treat our spouses sometimes as men. You know, like there's no care in the world or nothing, no attention, and then you want to come in and be like, all right,
It's your responsibility.
it's your
to do
responsibility.
this.
Yeah.
You know, like
And then, I mean, we obviously extend grace because we love Jesus. As
Right.
females.
Right.
A little bit more than you guys.
Right.
But, I'm just kidding.
I think it's like the difference between like, you know, the lawnmowers that you start with a button, and then the ones that you have to like
Crank up.
crank up and get them started. Men and women. Is that a fair illustration? Like you have to like.
Somebody mark that so we can use that as the clip later for the promo. Yeah, I think that's fair. Push button start versus crank motor.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair.
I have heard though, just different women in certain situations almost bragging about withholding sex
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
punishment.
Yeah.
And kind of glorifying that, and then other women like, oh yeah, you know, joining in as if the husband deserves that,
Yeah.
which, you know, I think that's.
They combine the two. I'm gonna withhold it until he does something, then I
Yeah.
reward him.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a combination. Yeah.
yeah.
No, ladies, we shouldn't do that.
Well, I think once you reduce this major component in a marriage
Yeah.
to this tool in a toolbox to get what you want that is totally self-centered, right? To get what you want, you're already way down the road. You know what I'm saying? You may not realize how far you are down the road to some real marital problems, but you're way down the road to some marital problems, because if you're willing to do that with something so special that should be the sacred thing in your relationship, then what else are you self-centered about
Yeah.
in the relationship, right? What else is going on in your mind or your actions that are proving out to be pretty self-centered? And it doesn't take long. If that's going on, usually when they're sitting on the couch, it doesn't take long to uncover, well, we've got problems in finance or problems in parenting or problems
Yeah.
in time, whatever it is, it gets down the road pretty quick. You know what I mean? It's like, All right, what advice, let's give a couple of, you can be the panel, okay? What advice would you give to a couple that's been married, let's say 10 years, and it's a typical problem where the guy's just saying, you know, I just feel like I want more sex than she's willing to give. What do you say?
What do you say?
What great advice do you have?
Yeah.
I would say, like, actually, on purpose, think of her more.
Okay.
Yeah.
Put her first.
Put her first, keep putting her first, keep putting her first, because I think women respond to love and grace and consideration.
Okay.
So like you were
Recreate your first date.
like what you were
Okay.
saying about seasons in life, especially like if you're married 10 years, you probably have a couple kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of women work full time, take care of the kids,
Yeah.
the meals,
Yeah.
you know, it's like,
They're tired.
they're like, they don't have battery packs, you
Yeah.
know?
I would say figure out why. If that's a problem, you obviously haven't discussed it with your spouse.
Okay.
And so figure out why.
Okay.
And she'll probably say a lot of those things.
Yeah.
Open discussion.
And how can you help address that? Because if a husband is willing and does help out, I think there'll be a natural response
Yeah.
from the wife.
I would add to that to like actually have the conversation with the intent of listening and seeing what you can do, not just listening and being offended and be like, well, I work too, and like, you know, like sometimes
Yeah, yeah.
we have conversations and we're listening almost to reply and not to like actually understand and be like, okay, that makes sense. You know, you have to be willing to put in the work, definitely put in the work, and it's work. It's always work, and that's not a bad thing.
Right.
You know, we have this image because of, you know, media and TV that like this perfect. There's no such thing. You got to put in. You could be married to your best friend, and you have to put in work every day.
Last question. What if it was the girl? What if the girl just says, I just don't feel like it. I just don't want to. I just don't feel like it. You're sitting down with a friend. You're sitting down with a friend at work, and she's just like, man, you know, I know he's not happy, but I just don't feel like it. I just don't feel connected. I'm not attracted, whatever it is. What
Well,
do I
there
do?
definitely has to be an honest conversation because I feel like it's not fair for a man in a relationship with a woman if she truly feels like there's no connection, she doesn't want to, then that needs to be spoken about. Because you can lead on your spouse in a relationship where you completely are checked out.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you get to a point, I don't want to, I'm not connected, if you don't want to give any effort into fixing it, then you need to say that out loud and let him know, like, this is how I feel, and then maybe other actions need to be taken at that
Yeah.
point. Because when a woman is completely disconnected to that point and has no desire whatsoever
Right.
to reconnect, then there's not a lot that you can do. Like, if it's to
Any
that
advice?
level of disconnect, to that level that's like, I'm not attracted to him at all, I don't want to at all. I mean, there's some heavy, serious conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah.
I would say if it's at that level, absolutely. But if you're just saying, like, I'm tired, I just don't want to, just like routine, daily responsibilities don't want to.
Okay.
I would say, sometimes I don't feel like it. I'm tired.
What?
I know, shocker, right? But you just have to do it anyway. And I think once, there's never been a moment, say I'm tired or I just don't feel like it, where I've ever been like, oh, I'm not glad that I didn't,
Yeah.
have that moment with you. There's
Okay.
never been that time. And
That's
so
good
I
to know.
think sometimes you just have to do it, and in that also there'll be,
Reward.
Reconnection?
well, not a
Yeah.
reward, but the husband will reciprocate and start giving that attention, like we were talking about earlier with the different moods.
That's an interesting point. You ever notice that what she said there is really interesting, and I talk about this a lot with couples. It's
Yeah.
like we're so concerned who's going to go first
Right.
to fix
Yeah.
the problem, right? Like the couple comes in, the guy's like, "I'm not getting enough." She's like, "He's not attentive enough," and like if both of you have something that has to change, can it happen simultaneously? In some miracle situation, maybe
Yeah.
yes. Sometimes somebody just has to go first.
Yeah.
Right, and then that reciprocates the other one, and then but we're so bent up on like, well, it has to be him that goes first or her that goes first. And it's like sometimes you just gotta like lean in.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of checked out you are. If it's
Yeah.
her kind of
Right.
checked out, that's stuff. But if you're like checked out, then you need to come
See a
my-
counselor. See a
I think-
counselor.
yeah, and
Okay.
it depends. Even on the check out, I've seen couples that they're like checked out. I don't even want to touch them or see them, and then, like
Pray.
God
Pray to
works.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So.
All right, that's as far as we can go for tonight. I think we were as intimate and as open as we could as muster.
Yeah,
Fair? Okay.
sorry.
We will continue this next week on Monday. Love you guys. Mean it. See you soon. All right.